12 hours before the wedding, three bridesmaids watched their friend receive screenshots that shattered everything. What happened next will make you question everything about love and money. The penthouse suite overlooked Lagos at night, a glittering sea of lights stretching to the horizon. Zainab Okafor sat cross-legged on the bed, surrounded by her three best friends, Tunde, Chioma, and Amara, her bridesmaids, her sisters. Tomorrow, she would marry Chukwu. One more day, Tunde giggled, raising her glass of wine, and Zainab officially becomes Mrs. Okafor Adeyemi. She's already an Okafor. Chioma laughed. Might as well stay single. They all laughed. But it was different laughter now, the kind that happens the night before everything changes. They'd spent the last 3 days together, in this suite, doing what best friends do, talking, laughing, gossiping, getting ready together. Normal stuff, beautiful stuff. Zainab was the daughter of one of Nigeria's most prominent billionaires. She'd grown up with everything: private schools, international trips, designer everything. But what she wanted most, money couldn't buy. Love, real love, the kind that made you feel like you were the richest person alive. And she thought she'd found it in Chukwu. The three bridesmaids were in the middle of their mini hen party when Zainab's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Zainab almost ignored it, but something made her look. She opened the message and the room went silent. Screenshots. So many screenshots. Text conversations between Chukwu and someone else. A woman. A woman Zainab had never heard of. This weekend, you and I, it is on. Hot stuff. Bring your A game. Kioma leaned over first, then Tunde, then Amara. All four women frozen. Your body is fucking incredible. I wish my girlfriend had half the skills you do. No, Zainab whispered. I miss you so much. I can't stop thinking about you. I've never had this kind of connection before. Your perfume's still in my hoodie. I'm wearing it to rehearsal. Keep my head straight. Wear that silver anklet Friday. One look and I'm gone. Last night's lip gloss is still wrecking me. Don't switch brands. And then, the one that broke her. If she didn't provide what I need in life, I would have left her for you a long time ago. Below it all, from the unknown number, I wouldn't marry him. Will you? The room didn't just go quiet. It stopped existing. For hours, they didn't move. They just read the messages, over and over. Chioma wanted to call Chukwu and scream. Tunde wanted to find the other woman and thank her. Amara wanted to burn everything down. But Zainab sat in the middle of the bed, still in her makeup, still in her pre-wedding glow, and felt something inside her break so completely she couldn't even cry yet. By midnight, her friends had fallen asleep around her, exhausted, devastated, protective. Zainab lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the penthouse, staring at the city lights below. And the questions came. Why would he do this? Why would he propose if he didn't love her? And then another question, darker. Was it because of my money? Zainab had always wondered about that. When she met Chukwu at that charity gala 3 years ago, she'd felt seen, understood. But there was always a small voice inside her, the voice she'd tried to silence. Is he with me because he loves me, or because of who my father is? She'd pushed that voice down. She'd chosen to believe. She'd chosen love. Now that voice was screaming. Wasn't I smart enough? She'd studied at Oxford. She had a degree in business. She ran one of her father's companies. But somehow she'd been stupid enough to miss this. Wasn't I pretty enough? Zainab looked at herself in the mirror across the room. The hairdresser had done flawless work with her hair. She was stunning, but apparently not stunning enough to keep a man from sleeping with someone else. Or was I just too much, too rich, too privileged, too easy to fool, because she'd never had to struggle for anything except love? By 3 a.m., Zainab stopped asking questions and started crying. She cried until her body went numb. She cried herself to sleep, her three bridesmaids surrounding her protectively, none of them able to fix what had just been broken. Morning came anyway. Zainab woke up, and for 3 seconds, she forgot. Then she remembered, and the pain hit again, like a fresh wound. But somewhere beneath the pain, something else was growing. Anger, clarity, resolve. She made a decision while her bridesmaids slept. She would go to that church wedding ceremony, not because she still wanted to marry Chukwu, but because everyone deserved to know who he really was. By 9 a.m., she was in her white dress, the dress she dreamed about for years, the dress that was supposed to make this the most beautiful day of her life. Now it felt like armor. Her three bridesmaids helped zip it up. They didn't ask questions. They understood. This wasn't about saving the wedding. This was about truth. 500 people filled the church. Every seat taken. Cameras in the back corners. Media always found a way in when you were the billionaire's daughter. Zainab's father sat in the front row, wondering about why his daughter carried a straight face instead of excitement. Chukwu's family filled the other side, unaware of the bomb about to detonate. At the altar, Chukwu waited. He looked nervous, but carried a wide smile. He had no idea what was coming. The ceremony began, and then it was time for vows. Chukwu's eyes were warm. He smiled like he'd done nothing wrong, like there wasn't a woman he'd been sexting for months, like he wasn't about to marry someone he'd settle for because she had what he was looking for in life. He said his vows very eloquently and with a charming smile that could melt hearts. His words were so believable. It was now Zainab's turn to say her vows. Steady voice, tears in her eyes. No one could tell if they were happy tears or not. That was the point. And then the moment came, and she spoke. Chukwu is not who I thought he was, she said, her voice steady even as tears streamed down her face. I love all of you, and as horrible as this is, I'm glad you're all here. The music stopped. The organist looked confused. The entire church went silent. That horrible, heavy silence where everyone knows something is about to break. She paused. Let that sink in. 500 people were now leaning forward. Then she read the messages aloud. Each one. Every incriminating text, every lie, every betrayal. She didn't rush. She didn't hide behind her pain. She read them in front of his mother, who gasped and covered her mouth. In front of his father, whose face went purple with rage and shame. In front of her own father, who stood up so fast his chair fell backward. This weekend, you and I. It is on. Hot stuff. Bring your A game. Gasps from the crowd. Your body is fucking incredible. I wish my girlfriend had half the skills you do. Murmurs. Someone's phone was already recording. Your perfume's still in my hoodie. I'm wearing it to rehearsal. Keep my head straight. Wear that silver anklet Friday. One look, and I'm gone. Last night's lip gloss is still wrecking me. Don't switch brands. If she didn't provide what I need in life, I would have left her for you a long time ago. The room erupted. Zainab's voice never wavered. She read every word, every confession of his affair, every admission of his motives. She held nothing back because there was nothing left to protect. The marriage was already dead. Now, she was just making sure everyone saw the body. The color drained from Chukwu's face. His jaw clenched. His hands formed fists. He looked around the church like a trapped animal, searching for an escape route. His best man put a hand on his shoulder. Chukwu shrugged it off. And then he did what any cornered man might do. He turned and walked out. But the moment he hit the aisle, his family tried to seize control. An uncle stepped forward. announcing the messages were fabricated and threatening legal action from the pulpit. A hired PR aide rushed the mic, asking the pastor to end the service to protect both families. Ushers moved towards Zainab to usher her away. Phones kept recording anyway. A cousin whispered that a cease and desist was already being drafted. It didn't matter. The truth and the video were already in the room. His best man hesitated for just a moment, then followed, trailing behind him like a ghost. 200 cameras flashed. Whispers turned into shouts. Chukwu's mother began crying. Her family members tried to comfort her. Zainab's father was on his way to the stage, his expression unreadable. Chukwu didn't say a word. He didn't try to explain. He didn't defend himself. He just walked straight out of that church, his footsteps echoing through the stunned silence, and disappeared. For a moment, the entire church held its breath. Then Zainab lowered her phone and looked out at the faces staring back at her. 500 faces full of shock, sympathy, anger, awe. And she smiled. Not a happy smile, a smile that said, "I'm still standing." She then made an announcement. The party will continue. Not to celebrate her marriage, but to celebrate truth. To celebrate her bravery and to dedicate it to women like her. The reception became legendary. Within an hour, the church had been transformed. The wedding decorations remained, but their meaning had shifted. What was supposed to be a celebration of marriage became a celebration of survival, of truth, of a woman brave enough to choose honesty over comfort. The music pumped, tequila flowed. People danced and hugged Zainab, told her she was strong, told her she was brave, told her she was better off without them. She smiled. She nodded. She played the role they expected her to play. But inside, she was dying. By 2 a.m., when the last guests were leaving and the staff was cleaning up the confetti, Zainab found herself alone in her penthouse suite. The same suite where, just 24 hours earlier, she'd been surrounded by her bridesmaids, laughing, preparing for her wedding day. Now it was silent. She sat on the edge of her bed, in her white wedding dress, the same dress she'd worn to destroy a man in front of hundreds. The makeup was smudged. Her hair was falling out of its elaborate style. Her feet ached from standing all day. And then it hit. Not the triumph, not the vindication, the pain, real pain, the kind that doesn't care about being brave or strong or right, the kind that just breaks you. Zainab didn't sleep that night. She sat in the dark, still in her white dress, and let the questions come. Why would he stand at an altar and swear vows he never meant? And then the questions got darker. Was it because of my money? From the moment she met Chukwu at that charity gala, there was a small voice inside her. The voice she tried so hard to silence. Is he with me because he loves me, or because of who my father is? She'd pushed that voice down. She'd chosen love over doubt, but he'd just admitted it in front of 500 people. She wasn't enough. Only her bank account was. Zainab went to the mirror and stared at herself. The wedding makeup was running now, mascara streaking down her cheeks like dark tears. She looked at her face, her features, her skin, her eyes, as if seeing them for the first time. Wasn't I smart enough? She'd studied at Oxford. She had a degree in business. She ran one of her father's companies. She'd built her own wealth on top of the family fortune. But somehow, she'd been stupid enough to miss this. Stupid enough to believe a man who was clearly using her. Wasn't I pretty enough? She was objectively beautiful. She'd never doubted that. But apparently, beauty wasn't enough to keep a man faithful. Apparently, it wasn't enough to make him love her. She reached up, and started taking off her wedding dress, letting it fall to the floor like a discarded dream. Wasn't I enough? Period? That was the real question, the one that kept circling back. She had everything money could buy. She had beauty. She had intelligence. She had a legacy. She had power. But she couldn't have the one thing she actually wanted: to be loved for who she was. Not for what she could provide, not for her connections, not for her father's empire. Just her. Zainab collapsed on the bed and started crying. Not the controlled tears from the altar, not the public tears that people could applaud, but the kind of crying that comes from your bones, that breaks your body, that makes you feel like you're drowning. She cried until her throat was raw. She cried until her body stopped responding. She cried herself into exhaustion and finally, mercifully, into sleep. Zainab woke at dawn, her face swollen, her body aching, her phone full of messages from media outlets, friends, well-wishers, and strangers who'd seen the video online. She didn't read any of them. Instead, she lay there for 5 minutes and felt the anger building. Not the hot, reactive anger from the altar. This was different. This was cold, purposeful, clear. She needed answers. Not for the world, for herself. She needed to look Chukwu in the eye and understand what kind of man could do this. What kind of man could propose to someone, plan a life with them, and all the while be laughing at them behind closed doors. She made a call. Find out where he is. I don't care what it takes. I need to see him today. By 11 a.m., she had an address, a boutique hotel in Victoria Island, where Chukwu's family had booked him a suite, probably trying to lay low after the scandal. Zainab didn't shower, didn't put on makeup, didn't do anything to soften her appearance. She threw on black jeans and a black shirt and went to find him. Chukwu answered the door in a tank top and boxer shorts, clearly hungover, clearly not expecting to see her. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe, or shame. It disappeared quickly. Zainab, he said, his voice casual, like they'd just run into each other at a coffee shop. Come in. We should talk about... No, she said, stepping into the room uninvited. We won't talk about anything. I'm here to ask you one question. Zainab, you embarrassed me. You embarrassed my entire family. The least you could do is... Did you ever love me? The question hung in the air. Chukwu's expression changed. He laughed, actually laughed. It was the cruelest sound Zainab had ever heard. Love you, he said, shaking his head. You're a billionaire's daughter. I don't need to love you to want to marry you. Zainab felt something inside her fracture. I was planning my entire future with you, she said quietly. I was going to have children with you. I was going to build a life with you. And you were going to give me access to your family's connections and your bank account. He interrupted, his voice dripping with contempt. That's what this was about. You think I would have looked twice at you if you didn't have money? You're gullible, Zainab. Painfully gullible. You have everything in the world except the one thing that matters. The ability to see through people. He stepped closer to her, his eyes cold. I played you. And if you hadn't found out, I would have kept playing you. Because that's what your kind does. You throw money around, expecting it to solve everything, expecting it to buy you love. But love isn't something you can purchase, no matter how many zeros are in your bank account. Zainab felt like the ground had shifted beneath her. She'd known, logically, what the messages meant. But hearing him say it out loud, with that tone, with that complete lack of remorse, it was different. It was like being stabbed twice. Once for the betrayal, once for the proof that he didn't care. You're not even sorry, she whispered. Sorry. He laughed again. For what? For trying to secure my future? For doing what any intelligent man would do? If you're stupid enough to fall for it, that's not my problem. Zainab stared at him. This man she'd planned to spend her life with. This man she'd loved. And all she saw now was a void where a soul should be. One more thing, he said, his voice taking on a dangerous tone. That woman who texted you, she's trying to make herself feel better about being a nobody. Don't believe her little friendship speech. She's using you just like I was, just like everyone is. You're a walking bank account, Zainab. That's all you'll ever be. Zainab turned and walked out without saying another word. She didn't slam the door. She didn't cry. She didn't react at all. She just left. For 3 days after that confrontation, Zainab didn't leave her penthouse. She didn't answer calls. She didn't respond to messages. She just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and asked herself the question that had been haunting her since the moment he admitted it. Why is it so hard for rich people to find true love? She thought about every relationship she'd ever witnessed in her world. The marriages of convenience, the infidelities hidden behind mansion walls, the children of billionaires who couldn't tell if anyone loved them or loved their bank accounts. She thought about her own mother, who died when she was young. She'd heard stories about how deeply her parents had loved each other. Real love, pure love, untainted by money or status. But that was rare. That was almost impossible in the world Zainab inhabited. She thought about all the relationships she'd seen crumble, all the families fractured by doubt, all the wealthy women she knew who had the same question in their eyes. Does he love me, or does he love what I can give him? And she realized, if you're rich enough, that question never goes away. It just gets buried under champagne and diamonds and the pretense that everything is fine. She'd buried it until Chukwu had forced her to face it. I thought he loved me as deeply as I loved him. That was the lie that broke her most. She'd loved him completely, vulnerably, with all the trust she could muster. And he'd been counting her father's money the entire time. She asked herself all the questions rich girls ask themselves. Was I too trusting? Was I too naive? Was I so desperate to be loved that I ignored all the signs? Was I so isolated by my wealth that I couldn't see reality? And the answer to all of them was yes. But that wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that in a world where money was power, trust became a luxury she couldn't afford. For 3 days, she lay in that penthouse and grieved. Not just the loss of Chukwu, but the loss of her ability to trust. The loss of her innocence. The loss of the idea that genuine love could exist in her world. By the third night, she'd cried herself hoarse. She'd asked every question she could think of, and she'd come to a terrifying realization. She didn't know who she was anymore. If she wasn't the billionaire's daughter, if she wasn't the heiress, if she wasn't the woman Chukwu wanted to marry, then who was Zainab? That was the question that would change everything. On the fourth morning, Zainab woke with clarity. Not happiness, clarity. And clarity, she realized, was worth more than any diamond. She stood in front of the mirror, the same mirror where she'd asked herself if she was pretty enough, smart enough, enough. But this time, she didn't look at her face, she looked at her eyes. And in those eyes, she saw something Chukwu had tried to steal, herself. Zainab Okafor wasn't her father's money. She wasn't her Oxford degree. She wasn't her beauty, or her connections, or her bank account. She was the woman brave enough to stand in front of 500 people and tell the truth when it would have been easier to disappear. She was the woman who'd loved so completely that she terrified a man who could only see numbers. And that was everything. She picked up her phone and called her 3 bridesmaids. Within the hour, they were sitting in her penthouse, Tunde, Chioma, and Amara, the same sisters who'd held her through the darkness. She looked at each of them and spoke the words she'd been afraid to say, "I'm going to be okay." Not because I got revenge, not because the world saw what he did, but because I finally understand something. The person I was looking for wasn't Chukwu. It was me. I was always looking for someone to tell me I was enough. But I had to tell myself first. Chioma started crying. Tunde laughed. The real kind. Amara reached over and squeezed her hand. "What are you going to do now?" Amara asked quietly. Zainab smiled. Not the smile from the altar. The smile now was different. It was the smile of someone who'd lost everything and discovered she still had the most important thing, her own heart. "I'm going to build something. Not for anyone else. For me. I'm going to take what my father built and I'm going to make it mine. Not because I have to prove anything to anyone, but because I want to know what Zainab can do when she's not busy trying to be loved by someone who doesn't deserve her." She paused, then added the part that mattered most. "And I'm going to teach other women what I just learned. That your value isn't negotiable. That your love is a gift, not a transaction. And that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from someone who's walking all over you." Within weeks, Zainab launched her own venture capital fund, focused on supporting women entrepreneurs in Lagos. Within months, it was one of the most successful in West Africa. But more importantly, she started speaking publicly about what happened. Not to shame Chukwu, but to reveal the truth that wealthy women rarely admit, that money can buy everything except the certainty that someone loves you. She did interviews. She wrote pieces. She became a voice for women who'd asked the same question she had. Does he love me, or does he love what I have? And slowly, something shifted. Other women started telling their stories. Other daughters of billionaires, other heiresses, other women who'd been used started speaking up. A movement began, not of anger, but of clarity, of women choosing themselves first. 6 months later, Zainab was invited to speak at a women's conference in Accra. As she sat backstage, waiting to go on, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Her heart stopped for a second. Old fear dies hard. But when she opened it, it wasn't from Chukwu. It was from the woman from the screenshots, the woman whose messages had started this entire chain of events. "I saw your speech last week. I want you to know I wasn't trying to destroy you. I was trying to save you. I couldn't be with him anymore because I realized he didn't love me either. None of us are special to him. That's not a reflection on us. That's a reflection on him. I hope you know that now. You always were special. You just needed to remember it yourself." Amina. Zainab read it 3 times. Then she walked on stage and told her audience the full story, including this final truth, that sometimes the people who hurt us are actually messengers. Sometimes pain is just clarity wearing a heavy coat. "I thought losing Chukwu meant losing love," she told a room of 300 women, "but I was wrong. I didn't lose love. I gained it. I gained love for myself, and I realized that's the only love that actually matters. Everything else is just decoration." As she stepped off that stage, Zainab Okafor wasn't the billionaire's daughter anymore. She was the woman who'd chosen herself, and in that choice, she found something Chukwu could never give her: peace. She never saw Chukwu again, but she heard stories about how his family had cut him off, about how he'd tried to contact her multiple times only to be blocked, about how he eventually left Nigeria altogether. He became a cautionary tale whispered at dinner parties. The man who had everything and threw it away because he couldn't recognize real value when it was standing right in front of him. But Zainab didn't think about him anymore. She thought about the women she was helping, the ventures she was building, the life she was creating, not for anyone else, but for herself. And that was the real happy ending. The end. Here is something to ponder on. Money can't buy love, but it can buy your freedom. Your bank account gives you the power to walk away from people who don't deserve you. Zainab's wealth wasn't the problem. Using it as her only identity was. Real power isn't in what you own. It's in knowing you're worth more than what you can provide. Your value isn't negotiable. Chukwu admitted he only wanted her for her connections and money. But here's what he didn't understand. Zainab's real value was never for sale. It was in her courage, her intelligence, her ability to choose truth over comfort. That can't be bought or sold. It can only be claimed. The greatest love story is the one with yourself. Zainab didn't need Chukwu to validate her worth. She had to learn to validate it herself. Once she did, everything changed. Her business, her voice, her impact. You can't build a life on someone else's love. You build it on your own. Like this video, if you've ever questioned your own worth because of someone else's actions, comment below with one lesson you're taking away from Zainab's story, the wisdom you needed to hear, and subscribe so you never miss a story that reminds you your value is not negotiable. Share this with someone who needs to remember they are enough, just as they are. Tag them in the comments and hit the notification bell so you get every new story about women choosing themselves first. Because that's the most powerful love story there is.